Welcome to the Happy Disruptors podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello and welcome to the Happy Disruptors podcast. I'm Katie and I am so excited to continue on in our series covering a preview of our upcoming Athene Watershed26 conference. Today we are jumping into our stacked benefits content track with the amazing Jen Cross. Jen, for those who aren't familiar with you, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
I'm Jen. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for the Great Outdoors Foundation. I'll be celebrating 7 years in September, which seems wild.
Wow. Yeah.
But oversee development, government relations, partnership conversations, both statewide and nationwide, and just really anything that can have a conversation, a solution, or a dollar amount, and I'm usually in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jen is the, you don't want to get the call from Jen because you know there's going to be an ask involved.
100%. Yes. It's either, are you going to be involved? Do you want to give money or your time? One of those three things, but that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it kind of a great fit for the stacked benefits. Yeah. I think what I love about this content track is just the diversity of the your subcommittee. And we've talked a little bit, if you haven't listened already, make sure to go back and listen to our 2 previous episodes covering our emerging voices in science and data content track. But this committee structure, our desire was to engage as many stakeholders as possible to help inform, the sessions that we'd have at the conference. Maybe tell the listeners just a little bit about the makeup of your particular subcommittee.
So it's been a very fun subcommittee, as you can imagine. A lot of great conversation, a lot of good chatter around water quality in Upper Mississippi. But the interesting part about the committee itself is it has utility. It has local conservation. It has a couple outdoor recreational projects that obviously all layer stacked benefits, of course. We also have TNC there and Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. So I think it's been a very good makeup of folks that really have a different say on different things when it comes to water quality, conservation, the ag space, kind of everything, very holistic view. And it's been very fun to bring that all together and try to, figure out the content when it comes to what that looks like.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing is, obviously, there was never going to be the possibility for us to have everyone involved who is working on water quality across the state or region. There are so many entities, but between the organizations represented on the subcommittees and committee structure, and then the individuals who are contributing to the actual sessions, I think we have like over 100 different organizations, which is really exciting, and I think just demonstrates that need for a layered approach and really this whole ecosystem of organizations contributing to a solution.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's what makes it unique too. And there's so many great people doing work on water quality. There's so many great conferences and sessions you can attend in regards to those conversations. But when you bring in that very 20,000 foot view, but also at the same time, not to give any sneak previews, but diving into the very local level, I think it's been very interesting and I think it's going to be really great for our audience. I'm super excited to kind of see all of it play out. And I know that your team's been working tirelessly on the agenda itself and the content. And it's going to be really cool. I'm pumped.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited. And you bring up audience. I think that's a great question that I'm sure those who are listening or considering going to the conference, it's like, okay, where do I fit in? We know that this is a kind of a multi-lens approach to water quality, but where do I really fit in these different content tracks? So what would you say, if you had to personify or maybe identify a few different kinds of individuals
Sure.
who would benefit from your sessions, who would those be?
Well, it's funny. I actually had a coffee meeting this morning with a man, and he's going to bring his dad, who is a farmer, like multi-generational farmer. So you can kind of see like the spectrum of folks that want to attend. But in regards to the stacked benefits, I think that's also the same thing. You know, you look at what the content looks like, you look at the organizations involved, you have, like I said, utilities all the way down to conservation, all the way down to recreational projects. So when it comes to the stacked benefits approach, I think it's really anyone. You look at farmers, you look at conservationists, you look at government officials, because some of that kind of ties into the track, which we'll talk about here shortly. And then even like economics. So looking at the economics of water and resiliency. And I think it's just I don't think there's going to be anyone that will be bored during the content, this content track. I think that's true, the whole entire agenda itself, but it's a very, very multifaceted, multi-layered approach to exactly what stacked benefits means.
I think the cool thing about stacked benefits, like when we talk about it in relation to water quality, you know, we eat, sleep, breathe water quality day in, day out, and we're a conservation organization. But we recognize that in basically any of these projects, there are layered benefits to the stakeholders involved. So some of those, you mentioned recreation, you know, obviously we've got great examples of that here locally. Sometimes it's utility resilience, but sometimes it's economic development. So it's kind of like throwing your spinach in the smoothie. I think Hannah has used that analogy before, or what sometimes I refer to as like the Trojan horse of conservation. Your primary focus may not be water quality, but if there is something connected to it, again, any one of these topics that we have mentioned that support your missions or your organization's mission, then we can look at like, okay, how do we get some synergy going between these different sectors where, you know, at a surface level, it may not make sense why an economic development authority would be interested in water quality, you know?
Yeah, but then I think to that point, it does, because I look back at some of the projects that we've done and supported through the Conservation Acceleration Fund, and you know, you think that it's just impacting that person's farm ground or that person's land, when in reality, they're hiring a local excavation company or they're hiring a local, you know, and that company is doing 5, 6, 7, 8 wetlands. And so then you really dive down into the very nitty gritty of what that can do for rural Iowa and economic development. And then you just can essentially just scale that up when it comes to this different approach. And I think that's kind of what's really unique, is people don't really think of it in that lens until you're right in front of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a super cool, I think, obviously we'll jump into the sessions here in just a moment, but just a really unique group of contributors to those sessions. And I think to your point, they're, regardless of where you find yourself professionally or personally, there are going to be takeaways from these sessions that would benefit you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's going to be fun. Stay tuned.
It is. It is. Okay. So without further ado, let's talk through some of these sessions. Jumping in with recreation as a catalyst for conservation. Tell us a little bit about this session.
Yeah. So I think you've probably heard that term come from the Great Outdoors Foundation for the last like 7 to 8, 9, 10 years. But I really think that if you can bring more folks outside, more folks in nature, obviously we have a great outdoor space here in Iowa and across the Midwest, but if you can bring more people to the outdoors, they're eventually going to care more about their outdoors and their outdoor space. And so recreation as a catalyst for conservation, I think that's proven with the Icon Water Trails project. That's proven with some of Polk County Conservation's projects here locally. And of course, on a larger scale too, if you are outside, you're going to care about the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking. And so using recreation as that catalyst to kind of connect conservation and recreation, it's going to be really entertaining for that one too.
Yeah, and we have some out-of-state contributors, which I am really excited. I feel so fortunate that they are willing to participate in this like inaugural year. But again, just looking at what these projects can do for a community, from a tourism perspective, an economic development perspective, and then certainly what we love to see, really stewarding those natural resources, which is, it's fantastic. That session, so again, if you've listened to our previous episodes, you know that we have a crossover track, our dynamic partnerships track. That session, the recreation as a catalyst for conservation, will be the dynamic partnerships session for this content track. Moving on, this one is super fascinating to me. I know almost nothing about it, but I'm really intrigued by the folks who will be contributing to the conversation, and that is the economics of water resiliency. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, I don't want to give anything away because this one I think is probably going to be a lot of people like start when they're looking at their agenda and what they want to attend. It's really trying to explore unique funding models for that resiliency. And so, you know, you look at water on a high level, we have a quality issue, there's scarcity issues. And so trying to really find some of those funding aspects when it comes to water resiliency and how we can make our water resilient here across the upper Midwest and upper Mississippi River watershed, I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. It is a panel, so obviously several contributors there, but it's going to be one that people are like circling, like, yeah, okay, I want to hear more about this one.
Yeah, and it's such a it's like a pressing topic, right?
Yes.
We see, obviously, we're fortunate here in the Midwest where we maybe conventionally don't have a water scarcity issue, but certainly when you look at water quality kind of contributing to that, and then the continuation of climate change, you know, we're poised to start being future forward, you know, really thinking strategically about how we want to safeguard these resources in the event that there is a situation where we aren't as fortunate, we're not we are not getting the water out of here as quickly as possible, because we have a surplus of it. So I think that'll be really, really fascinating. Again, have some excellent contributors to that conversation. Okay, next session. This one is super practical, very, like, I think from a just a conversation standpoint, like very tactical, and that is kind of a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
Adapting to government funding, successful transitions from the Partnership for Climate Smart Commodities program to the Advancing Markets for Producers, the AMP initiative. Yeah. So
mouthful for sure.
Give us some insight
to not
here.
Use abbreviations.
You're our government relations expert.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about
that. I'll try. So what's been interesting in the federal landscape, and obviously we've seen kind of this play out the last couple of years with this new administration, is they pulled back a lot of the federal funding. In addition, they pulled it back, but really still needed to spend it. And so instead of spending it in the way that it was previously administered through the previous administration, they've taken it all back and kind of put in some different rules, regulations around it. And so a lot of our partners that received funds got them entrenched and then got them again, but they have different regulations they have to spend it around. And so the way that the landscape is looking now when it comes from the climate smart going to what's called AMP, and it's, I don't want to do the abbreviations here, but advancing markets for producers, it's really trying to get the money back to the farmer's pocket, which I think is very interesting. And so a lot of those organizations that receive these large multi-million-dollar grants are trying to find ways to expend those, but then they have to have a percentage of that go back to the producer. So that's kind of where the difference is. And so there's obviously a very escalated timeline to spend these dollars. And you know, what I think has happened because of that is we've had really creative solutions come to the table and come to the forefront for this. And you're seeing like CPG firms get involved. You're seeing, you know, some of those folks that really have a interest in the food side of things get involved in these grants. And really long term, I think it's going to up the ante for regenerative agriculture. And so this panel is going to be federal funding focused, yes, but then how are we actually like introducing these funds back into the marketplace and getting money back to producers? So it's a very large initiative, but really dialing it back down to the producer itself.
And you know, the funding environment at the federal level is changing constantly, you know,
Yes.
with every
Daily.
administration. And even, beyond that within administrations, tenure. But we've got some time left that this program will be in effect. And so the desire here is to help set up partners or maybe even help organizations who hadn't seen themselves serving in this type of role before, help to brainstorm those opportunities of like, how can I fit into this? And as you said, come up with those creative solutions to get those funds on the ground to farmers and producers where they need to be. Okay. Okay. Next one. This is also really, really interesting. And that is positioning states for maximum water quality investments.
Yeah. Good times.
So this will be a workshop.
This will be a workshop.
It's really interesting concept, obviously, in the kind of like rise of data center and tech infrastructure investment at the state level. What's the goal of this workshop?
Yeah, so a lot of conversation happening around data centers and water quality, and then the water scarcity issue kind of plays into effect here. So the goal of this workshop is to really be able to take a statewide approach when it comes to collecting, well, first and foremost, before you have a large infrastructure project, you probably should know a water plan or have the landscape of what the water looks like between you're pulling from the aquifers, if you're pulling from surface water. So this workshop is designed to help kind of make that a step-by-step process where you're looking at the state, whether it's Iowa, Indiana, whatever state it is, as a whole, and doing a water plan when it comes to quality and scarcity, and then helping the state government be able to make decisions on where these infrastructure projects should be placed because of what the water situation looks like on the ground. And so there's a lot that goes into that from data and science and different elements there. But then again, stacked benefits, of course, you tie in the science and the data, you tie in economic development. And so it gives a larger holistic picture to a state level as to where these large infrastructure projects should be placed within our state and other states too. So the goal of that workshop is really to be able to have that framework and be able to use that across different states in the Midwest.
Yeah, and hopefully equip those communities with some resources and that framework to consider how they should be looking at these investments, what they should be negotiating for with these investments, and really making sure that it is a mutually beneficial partnership.
Yes.
So I think that, regardless of where you stand on AI, it kind of feels like that train is moving forward full steam.
Yes.
So how do we, as a conservation community, look at that really with a critical eye and make sure that we are stewarding those resources to the best of our ability?
Yeah, and I think so too. Like you see a lot of these organizations that are coming in with these large infrastructure projects do dedicate funding to practices that help replenish the water. So this would just give it even more of a direct correlation to that, and I think allow some framework around it. And so that will be really helpful, a statewide approach, but also I think it'll help tell a story for those communities too, like, we're going to have this entity invest in this directly because we know that's replenishing the water it's using. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Like the AI train is moving full steam ahead, and we have to figure out a way to make sure that we're stewarding the natural resources side as well as we're building up these large infrastructure projects.
Yeah, that I think will be a heavily attended workshop.
Another circle and star on your agenda.
Exactly. Okay, and then wrapping up the stacked benefits track, we have investments upstream, rethinking conservation intervention strategies, and I believe we have the fabulous Jen Cross sitting on this panel herself. So give us some insider perspective.
Yeah, so obviously a large conversation that keeps happening time and time again, and one of those where very much more creative solutions are being brought to the table. And so I think we're looking at a large opportunity from a funding perspective when it comes to how can we package different opportunities? How can we create programs for investment for these larger corporations to invest in that also gives money back into the community from a water quality perspective, from a producer perspective. And so this is going to be really fun. I'm very excited, obviously, to be part of it and very honored, but really looking forward to having that large conversation with several other panelists. And then, of course, like with any panel, we want audience participation and questions to come from the audience. So there's a lot of people that are asking great questions, a lot of people doing great work in the space. And so how can we kind of showcase that on a panel, but also what are we not thinking of? You know, I always like to have panels be an opportunity for learning as well. And so maybe, you know, yes, we're all talking on the panel itself, but then some of the audience might have a better idea. So how can we take that idea and then implement it as well? So I'm very excited for this conversation. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that there is already this movement toward kind of boundaryless intervention strategies. You know, we were joking earlier about how it would be really great if the water just like respected jurisdictional boundaries. And it was like, so long as we're doing everything we need to within these specific geographic location, then we're in great shape. But unfortunately, the water doesn't consider that. And so we really have to think holistically. That's why we're calling this watershed. It's because it's this whole upper Mississippi River watershed that we need to address and consider and use these like really dynamic public-private partnerships to maximize the impact, because we know that certain geographic areas will have an outsized impact on the desired water quality outcomes that we're looking for. So not getting bogged down in the, well, is this within my county? Is this within my jurisdiction? Yeah.
And I think too, like I keep thinking like the word innovation, obviously it's part of our mission too, but innovation I think is what's necessary for some of these things to get through as well as funded. And so you kind of have to keep pivoting. And we've seen that with, you know, government funding changing. And so as long as you can continue to pivot as an organization and be okay with either taking the back seat or the front seat, I think everyone's voices matter. And I think that being able to have a panel circulate around investments upstream and kind of rethinking how conservation is outlaid is really going to be showcasing a lot of that innovation as well.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. Anything else you want the listeners to know about the content track before we move on to Let's Whiteboard It?
I think it's going to be very interesting, multi-layer, of course, the entire conference. Like, I think people are going to have a hard time picking what sessions to go to, which is intentional. But we really want to make sure that we're, you know, kind of catering to all audiences. And so the stack benefit side of things too is very much the same. You have the utility, you have the nonprofit, you have NGO, you have federal government, you have these state side workshops. It's just going to be a very intriguing content track, but I think that's also all of them. So like, good luck trying to figure out which ones to go to, because I think we're all going to have a hard time figuring out which ones to attend and which ones not to attend.
For sure. Yeah. Super, super excited. And again, just so grateful. You have an awesome subcommittee.
They're fantastic.
A great slate of session contributors. So many thanks to all of them.
Yes, thank you for taking the time once a month, multiple times to come hang out with us.
Yes, having those brainstorming sessions. They're
much
so
needed.
Important. Okay, well, you know, we close out every single episode with our Let's Whiteboard It segment. So my question for you today, Jen, is what are you most looking forward to about Athene Watershed 26? You can write or draw.
We are not drawing. I am not an artist.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. It's going to be a written response. That's perfectly fine. So while Jen is jotting down her response, make sure to like and subscribe wherever you are listening to this episode. The full Athene Watershed 26 agenda is live on our website, so go check it out at greatoutdoorsfoundation.org. And do just want to say a very special thank you again to our partners at Athene for serving as our presenting sponsor in this conference, but also providing their input on our advisory committee, again, contributing to the overall content slate for this conference and giving direction to our shared action plan. So thank you so much to Athene.
Thanks, Athene.
Did I give you enough time?
Yeah, and this will be no surprise.
Okay. All right. Give it to us.
So I have several words here because you could draw these things, but it would not be pretty. Relationships and partnerships. Obviously, I think that being able to have the larger reach as not just Iowa is going to, and this is not just for us, but I think for everyone there, they'll develop new relationships, new networking opportunities, new conversations, which then kind of ties into partnerships. This is like a tiered approach, obviously, because then you're going to be able to find more people doing the things that, we all want to get done in different creative ways. And then of course, action plans are going to come from that. Right. I cannot wait to see what we're developing and what will be put on the ground. Like I said, not all owned by one person, owned by all of us as a collective. And then of course, just the innovation. I think that some of the best ideas happen at conferences, and we've done a really good job with the committees and the structure behind the scenes to allow that innovative space to kind of flourish within the conference itself. And so I'm excited for all of our attendees to take advantage of that and help us solve all the world's problems.
Yeah. Exactly.
Easily.
It's so simple. It's going to be so great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for the conversation, Jen. And make sure, again, go register now at thegreatoutdoorsfoundation.org.
Awesome. Yeah, Excellent. We'll see you there.
Yeah.